younger, more beautiful, more perfect. The Substance. 1 week of youth and beauty, 1 week is your ordinary self. A body horror, white-knuckle roller coaster, which unpacks the scary and often disgusting beauty standards of Hollywood. Elizabeth Sparkle is an aging star. In her youth, she was adored by the masses. Now, her youth has waned, and her popularity along with it. A workout program with declining ratings is all that's left of her TV career. Then, on her 50th birthday, she's fired. The Hollywood bigwigs have all but washed their hands of her, and her career in show business is over. That is until she discovers The Substance, a black market drug to get her life back, but with a terrible price. This is the closest I've gone to walking out of a cinema ever. I will mention spoilers in this video. This film isn't for everyone and will make most people extremely uncomfortable, but if you think you can stomach it, I would highly recommend the watch. Before you understand what The Substance is, you need to understand why Elizabeth takes it. Elizabeth's self-worth lies in her beauty, her youth, and her time in the spotlight. After she takes The Substance, she does indeed become young and beautiful and regain her position on her workout show. However, the tone has changed. Before, her show was a Jane Fonda-style workout program for middle-aged women. The new one, quite frankly, this is almost porn. Most sinister of all though, is she prefers this life. She wants this so desperately, she's literally willing to take a black market drug that literally rips her in two. Unsurprisingly, in this gut-wrenching body horror, the black market drug which promises you youth and beauty is anything but beautiful. From the gun, The Substance is intense. When Elizabeth receives The Substance, it comes with ominous instructions from an unknown entity, with needles, drip feeders, and vials. The drug kickstarts the growth of a new person inside her. During the excruciating process, Elizabeth's back rips open and a new person is born. Sue. Elizabeth, now Sue, is mesmerized by the beautiful creature she has now become. She is mildly uncomfortable with sewing her back up and sucking her body juice, I guess you could call it, from her original self to feed her younger self. However, it's clear to her that the ends justify the means. You aren't given specifics, really, about Elizabeth's life before the start of the main story. All you know is she was young, desirable, and adored by the masses. What you can be sure of is that she, like many young actresses, was taught where her value was, in her youth and her beauty. Despite losing this, she's clearly not struggling for money, as can be seen by her LA suite. However, other resources are non-existent. Friends, family, people who genuinely care for her. What I can surmise is this: she's never had any, or at the very least, society has not taught her to value these connections. There is a brief moment for her to explore this possibility with an old acquaintance. I can't decide if he's a bit creepy or quite sweet. Maybe both. Regardless, he clearly represents the possibility for a real connection. Despite this, it doesn't take long for her to reject this, rightly or wrongly seeing it as beneath her. Her whole life, she's been on top. She's been Elizabeth Sparkle, and she wants it back. Once Elizabeth injects The Substance, the nature of her transformation is pretty horrific. You see a new eyeball growing next to her original one, new limbs grow inside her, pressing against her skin. The use of practical effects makes it so gut-wrenching and visceral. Then, once she's finished admiring her new figure, Elizabeth, now Sue, sews up her original back. She then feeds her old self via the food matrix, which are a series of plastic bags she fills up with her aforementioned body juice. This is connected to a drip feeder to keep her now motionless old body alive. All of these medical tools are designed a lot more like products. The chunky font mirrors a lot of popular cosmetic brands in the real world. I believe the parallels to the cosmetic industry are very intentional here. The procedures Hollywood stars go through in real life to achieve their looks are often both extensive and invasive, whether it be through steroids to get as jacked as possible, or through Botox to remove any of those pesky wrinkles. Elizabeth's bathroom is also so bare and clinical, much like the white room of a cosmetic surgeon. As a society, we consume this look en masse, but we rarely think about how it's achieved. Fargeat wants to take us behind the curtain and show us how the sausage gets made. Despite the supernatural transformation, there's nothing on the surface which would lead you to believe that the world is anything different from our one. But despite the normality, the world of the substance feels off. I was left with a sinking feeling in my stomach during seemingly banal scenes. The hallways are very Kubrick-esque, long and desolate, with repeating geometric patterns on the carpet. It creates an eerie, liminal, dreamlike atmosphere for the film. A lot of this film is about Elizabeth's perception of her reality. A beautiful day in sunny LA can be seen from her apartment, but all she sees is her old workout show poster being pulled down and replaced by a new one. Almost all the sets outside the studio are not only unnerving because of their shapes, but also because of their polish. Thomas Flight does a brilliant job of explaining the look of the substance in his video. Why does the substance look like that? Please check it out, it's excellent. One point he mentions is this polish feeling. A studio feels polished and unnatural, but that's what's expected from viewers. However, there's many other locations which also have this atmosphere. Her apartment doesn't feel lived in. It's just like a set. It's how Elizabeth sees the world, always through this idealized version of reality. A clean one, a perfect one. However, the result is not a perfect world, but a hollow one. A world so flimsy and surface level, you could push it over if you wanted. Fargeat has a very loud style. She loves vibrant colors and hyper-realistic shots, often with lots of macros. When shooting a dance scene with Sue, her legs look so smooth they appear almost plastic. Sue's outfits also emphasize her youth. Some of them almost give a preteen look, which, given the hyper-sexualized nature of the film, adds to the creepiness. I also really like the creative decision to have two different actors for the younger and the older self. The transformation could have just changed Elizabeth into her younger self again. I think the decision to have two different actors emphasizes the change from her original self and helps separate them as individuals. Despite the shadows behind the substance telling her, "You are one," creating a new, different individual furthers the divide between them. The philosophy of the substance is this: you are not enough. This younger person is. You are not the one, she is the one. You are nothing. The lead performances in this film, Demi Moore, Margret Qualley and Dennis Quaid, are excellent. After hearing Demi Moore's speech at the Golden Globes, I can tell why she really connected with this story. Watch it if you haven't, it's sad as well as inspiring. Elizabeth's desire to have the life she used to far outweighs her fear of irreversible consequences. She does become horrified when she stays as Sue for too long and Elizabeth begins to age unnaturally, but that horror only lasts a mere moment before she's reminded of the amazing life she has at Sue. She's torn between withering Elizabeth's body and staying as the young and greatly desired Sue. Despite this conflict though, she eventually decides that her old body is worth the sacrifice, and she stays as Sue for longer and longer, until her inevitable self-destruction. Demi Moore and Margret Qualley excellently portray this struggle. Her pull between accepting herself the way she is and choosing this new life the substance gives her is so tactile on screen. The scene where her performance sticks out to me the most is when she agrees to go on her date with her old acquaintance. She tries to get ready, but no matter how she does her makeup, what dress she wears, she's not happy. She is no longer satisfied with the beauty she still has, and she longs for more. She erupts and begins scratching her face off and tearing off her eyelashes in a fit of fury. Once again, Elizabeth turns away from a possible connection that isn't just superficial. And as she did so, my heart bled for her. I mentioned earlier how the sets provide insight into how Elizabeth sees the world, but it's also the other characters which reinforce this worldview. Harvey, played by Dennis Quaid, represents the chief Hollywood bigwig. Harvey cares about the shareholders and making as much money as possible. He shows no regard for the well-being of Elizabeth, or anyone else for that matter. And at the start of the film, he throws her out like a used tissue. The tone he uses when planning to remove her over the phone is one of spite. He, quote, doesn't give a fuck what they promised her. He laughs at women, quote, becoming less fertile after 25. That's all she's worth to him. When Harvey fires her, he does so whilst messily consuming absurd quantities of shrimp. He ends their luncheon abruptly, leaving an absolute mess on the table. He wants what he wants. To hell with the carnage he leaves behind. The irony of this sequence is Harvey is actually quite unpleasant to look at. He's got red skin and awful jackets. He eats disgustingly and he smokes like a train. In fact, in this shot here, his puckered lips genuinely looks like someone's asshole. Tell me I'm not the only one who sees this.
Yep.
At the end, Harvey and his entourage leer at Sue like one does a prized jewel. She's not a person to them. She's a sweet, innocent girl who they can shoot raunchy content of to make shitloads of money. But you'd be wrong if you thought this was merely a gratuitous, gore-filled, shocking horror. The Substance is one of those films where every shot is framed purposefully. The start of the film perfectly sets the stage. Elizabeth sparkles Hollywood star from its first installation to the cracks forming. From fans jumping with glee at the sight of it, to trying to remember who she is, to not even acknowledging her. In just this short sequence of different versions of the same shot, it tells us so much about Elizabeth's slow decline in relevance. Quintessential visual storytelling. The next thing you notice is the frequent use of extreme close-ups. Extreme being the appropriate word. Fargeat wants you to feel repulsed by what you see. No one wants to see a close-up of someone eating shrimp, or someone sewing up someone's back. Whenever something awful is about to happen and you think, they'll cut away, they don't. She also loves wide-angle lenses. Subject faces appear stretched out and disturbing in close-ups, and out of reach in wides. Powerful and mighty in low-angle shots, and vice versa for high-angle ones. The sound design and the soundtrack also play a huge part. Any scene with food or flesh, it's so uncomfortable by the Foley for this film. When Sue attacks Elizabeth and I hear the bones crunch, I wince every time. When Harvey eats shrimp, I'm repulsed. And when random body parts stretch out of the mutated monster, I want to throw up. Every single one of your senses is being exploited to make you feel as uncomfortable as possible. It's another great insight into how Fargeat sees the world. From what I can tell, it's a consumer-driven culture, and in the case of The Substance, the commodification and exploitation of women's beauty. Now, I want to briefly touch on the ending, because after reading some reviews online, a lot of people seem to get lost. And that's fair. After the first viewing, I was so exhausted by the film, I was pretty much begging for the credits to roll. But I think that's the point. I think the film is supposed to be exhausting. It's not subtle in its messaging, and at the beginning of the film, it shows you the psyche of this fallen star. Elizabeth longs for the spotlight, and the only way she can get back there is if she's beautiful. The comments by Harvey and the others, cut from the same cloth, show us why she feels this way. They're judgy, objectifying, and at times, straight up dehumanizing. Hearing these comments, though, isn't enough. The Substance doesn't just want you to know what it's like, it wants you to feel it. As the film descends into a shocking, violent body horror, and the viewer becomes increasingly uncomfortable at the end of the film, you begin to feel the emotions which Elizabeth feels. With every wide shot of Harvey, you feel his beady eyes oogling you. With every stab into Elizabeth resulting in a pus-ridden spot and decayed body, you feel your own energy being drained. With every split from her original self, you begin to treat these characters more and more like different people and not as the same lost and desperate person. By the time the film reaches its cancerous abomination on stage, spraying blood and body parts across the audience, I was truly and utterly exhausted. And it was at that moment Fargeat brings us right back to what this film is about. Spliced into the chaos are all the aforementioned sound bites. This is the result of those comments. Horror. At its core, The Substance is about absurd beauty standards of Hollywood and the damage it does. Elizabeth, who longs for the spotlight, is cast aside when she's too old and goes to extreme measures to get it back. She has no real connections in her life. She longs for the spotlight, what she knows. But to be in the spotlight, the powers that be must deem you worthy. To be worthy, you must be a pretty girl that always smiles. Elizabeth goes through hell to achieve these standards, literally tearing herself apart in the process. She spends longer and longer being Sue, the person the spotlight accepts. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, her original self, withers and decays. Anger and disdain for one another builds until the two clash, ultimately destroying one another. And from the ashes, a monster rises. One which does not fit these impossible beauty standards, and one which is ultimately rejected. The truth is, there was never an old person and never a beautiful one. There was never even a monster. They are all Elizabeth.